Thanksgiving has always been weird in my family, but this year felt different, like something inside me finally snapped. My name's Andrew, I'm 28, and for most of my adult life, I've tried to be the easy son. The one who doesn't argue. The one who shows up on time, helps clean up, sends thank you texts, and nods along politely when my mom brags about my younger cousins like they're the second coming of Einstein. I've never made a scene. I've never even raised my voice in a family gathering, no matter how many passive-aggressive jabs were thrown my way. I was raised to not make a fuss, and for a long time, I thought that was maturity. That being the bigger person meant biting your tongue and playing nice, even when your own family acted like you were some weird extra who wandered into their perfect sitcom. But something about this Thanksgiving changed that. Let me back up a bit. I work in IT, mostly freelance cybersecurity contracts for small businesses, and lately, I've had a pretty decent run. I don't flaunt it. My apartment is modest. My car is a 2014 Corolla, and I've never posted a single hustle culture quote on Instagram. But I'm stable, independent, no debt. I pay my bills early. I've helped a few friends get on their feet, and just that morning, Thanksgiving morning, I'd approved a $5,000 transfer to help my dad cover a car repair that he couldn't afford up front. He'd called me 2 days earlier, sounding tired, frustrated. Andrew, listen, the dealership said it's the transmission. They want $5,000, and they won't even start the work without a deposit. I'm already maxed out from your mom's dental stuff. You think you could spot me until the end of the month? I didn't even think twice. Yeah, of course, I said. I'll send it over Thursday morning. He sounded genuinely grateful. I don't know what we'd do without you, son. Those words stuck with me, not because they were sweet, but because they were so rare. My dad's not the most expressive guy. He's usually all sarcasm and shoulder pats. So when he dropped something that sounded almost sincere, I took it at face value. I showed up to Thanksgiving with a bottle of wine in one hand and my famous cornbread stuffing in the other. My cousins were already there, gathered in the living room around the TV. They're all younger than me, 20, 22, 24, loud, smug, fresh out of college or still in it, wearing cologne like it's armor. One of them, Tyler, was bragging about how he closed a $60,000 deal at his startup like he'd just cured cancer. My aunt was eating it up, nodding like he'd made the Forbes list. I sat on the armrest of the couch for a bit, said hi to everyone, then drifted into the kitchen to help Mom set up. Can you grab the paper plates, honey? She asked, barely looking at me. Sure, I said. Do you want the good ones, or just? She cut me off. Doesn't matter. You're sitting with the kids anyway. I froze. What? She looked at me like I was being difficult. The adult table's full. There wasn't enough room. I glanced toward the dining room. It was the same table we'd used every year, the one that comfortably sat 10. My dad, my uncle, my aunt, my mom, my older sister and her husband, and 3 open seats. One of which, historically, was always mine. I don't mind squeezing in, I offered, half laughing, trying to keep it light. I can grab a stool. But my sister chimed in from the hallway, her voice dripping with faux sympathy. Oh, Andrew, it's just easier this way. The kids actually like you, right? The kids, by the way, are all legally old enough to drink and vote. I said nothing, just nodded and went to the kitchen corner, where they'd set up a rickety folding table with mismatched chairs, plastic utensils, and a lopsided centerpiece made from construction paper. Like we were staging some middle school arts and crafts fair. My name was on one of the paper napkins in Sharpie. No one else seemed to find this weird. No one said, wait, Andrew's 28. Why is he at the kids' table? No one offered their seat, or even pretended to notice. I sat down across from Tyler, who barely looked up from his phone. Dinner began. Toasts were made. Plates passed. At some point, my uncle raised a glass and said, here's to the next generation making waves. And everyone clapped while Tyler smugly nodded like he'd just won an Oscar. Then came the moment. Tyler glanced at me, grinning like he was about to say something hilarious. Hey, Andrew, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Maybe when you get a real job, you can graduate to the adult table. Laughter. Actual laughter. From the table of people who'd been eating food I helped pay for. From the parents who'd taken my help, my money, and my silence for years. My mom even giggled behind her wine glass like it was some harmless joke. My dad didn't say a word. He just chewed his food and kept looking down at his plate. I didn't respond. Didn't smile. Didn't fake laugh. I just sat there, my appetite gone, my face burning, my chest tight in that horrible way that's not quite rage and not quite sadness. Just something hollow and ugly in between. I excused myself 10 minutes later. Told them I had a headache. My mom didn't protest. My dad mumbled something like, "Feel better, son," and that was it. I drove home in silence. No music. Just the sound of my tires on the highway and my thoughts boiling over. All I could think about was that loan. The $5,000 I'd sent that morning. The one my dad had promised to repay soon. The one I hadn't even told anyone else about because I didn't want to be the guy who throws money around for recognition. So when I got home, I sat down at my desk, logged into the portal for my business banking account, and clicked Cancel Transfer. The funds hadn't posted yet. I was still within the window to reverse it. I hovered for a second. Then I clicked Confirm. And that, apparently, was the equivalent of lighting a match and tossing it into a gas-soaked shed. Because 2 hours later, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Text after text. Missed call after missed call. My dad. My mom. My sister. Even Tyler. And every single one of them was furious. Because apparently, the dealership had tried to run the financing. The payment had bounced. And now the repair shop was holding my dad's car hostage. No car, no loan, no way home. But that wasn't even the part that got me. The part that really hit me was what my dad finally texted after 10 straight missed calls. It read, "After everything we've done for you, this is how you treat your family?" I stared at that text for a long time. After everything we've done for you, this is how you treat your family? It repeated in my head like a dripping faucet. Mocking. Twisting. I didn't answer. Not right away. I sat there, phone on my desk, lights off in the apartment, the glow from the screen casting this cold, pale light across the room. I wasn't angry anymore. Not in the shouting, table-flipping way. I was something worse. Quiet. Still. That kind of stillness where your brain stops spinning in circles and starts lining things up. Making connections. Seeing patterns that you've spent years ignoring. It wasn't just Thanksgiving. It never was. That was just the crack in the dam. I started replaying everything in my head. Moments I'd brushed off or laughed about at the time because, well, that's just family, right? Like how my sister got a brand new Honda for her 21st birthday while I was told a used car builds character. Or how my cousin Tyler, the same one who humiliated me over dinner, borrowed $3,000 last year for a once-in-a-lifetime crypto investment and never paid it back, and no one cared because he's just figuring things out. Meanwhile, when I was unemployed for 6 months in my early 20s, my mom told me I was a burden and suggested I look into truck driving, because clearly computers weren't working out. Or how every Christmas, the big gifts somehow always skipped my name. I got a sweater. My sister got concert tickets. I got socks. My cousin got an Apple Watch. And every year, I smiled and said thank you like it didn't sting. I'd internalized it. All of it. Like maybe if I just worked harder, kept being helpful, stayed quiet, eventually I'd earn my seat at the table, literally and metaphorically. That one day they'd look at me and see someone valuable, someone equal. But Thanksgiving proved something. That no matter how much I gave, how much I earned, how much I bit my tongue, they would always see me as less. And now I had text messages to prove it. The barrage came in waves. Dad, I needed that loan, Andrew. I told you I was stranded. Mom, you're being dramatic. This is not how you handle a disagreement. Sister, you embarrassed Dad. This was cruel. Grow up. Tyler, wow. Big man move. You realize he was counting on that. Each one hit like a brick, and with every ping, I felt this quiet wall building inside me. A barrier made of years of overlooked birthdays, of condescending smiles, of being asked to fix Wi-Fi at every holiday while they laughed behind my back. But it was the second message from Dad that finally broke something inside me. You're lucky we let you stay involved in this family at all after how you turned out. That word, let, like my entire relationship with them, was some kind of charity. Like I was on thin ice for daring to be different, to not toe the line, to not turn out the way they expected. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind looping through every family gathering, every offhand comment, every time I was told I think too much or take things too personally. But for once, I didn't second-guess myself. The math was clear. I was the family's backup plan. The quiet fallback guy. The one they kept at arm's length until they needed money, tech support, or someone to drive grandma to the podiatrist. I checked my bank account. The $5,000 was back where it belonged. I stared at it for a while, then did something I hadn't done in years. I went back and opened my old family debt spreadsheet. Yeah, I kept one. It started as a joke years ago. Just a little Excel sheet titled IOUs and Broken Promises, where I kept track of money I'd loaned out just for a few weeks. I hadn't updated it in over a year, but the numbers were still there. A $500 loan to my sister for a surprise vacation she never mentioned again. $1,200 for mom's emergency dental work. $3,000 for dad's failed landscaping side business. $300 here. $200 there. Always with a smile. Always with the promise of, I'll get it back to you soon. The grand total? $12,580. And that was just the cash. That didn't include the favors. The weekend airport drop-offs. The IT consulting I did for free for Tyler's startup. The time I edited my cousin's entire grad school essay. And he didn't even say thank you. Just forwarded it to 3 friends and said, "My cousin's good with words. He'll help you too." It was all so clear now. I was never part of the family. I was a service they used. The next day, I didn't respond to anyone. I didn't check my texts. I turned my phone on silent and spent the day doing things for myself. Cooked a real breakfast, went for a walk, even rewatched one of my favorite movies without interruption. And the weirdest part? I felt calm. But of course, the silence didn't last. That evening, my sister showed up at my apartment. She didn't even knock like a normal person, just started pounding on the door like she was trying to break it down. I opened it, already bracing myself. "Are you serious?" she barked before I could say anything. What kind of childish stunt was that? I blinked. "You mean not giving away my money?" She scoffed. "You humiliated dad. Do you even understand what you've done?" I crossed my arms. He humiliated me, in front of the whole family, and no one said a word. That was just a joke. "No," I said sharply. "It wasn't. And even if it was, maybe I'm just done laughing." She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "Wow, you're really letting your ego ruin everything." "My ego?" I laughed. Not loud, not dramatic, just a bitter little exhale. "You all have spent years treating me like some second-class cousin, and the one time I push back, I'm the villain?" My sister rolled her eyes. "It's not that deep, Andrew. You've always been sensitive." There it was. The classic shutdown. I'd heard it 100 times. "You're too quiet. You overthink things. Don't take it so seriously." Translation: your feelings aren't valid. I stepped aside. "If you came to return the money you owe me, we can talk. If not, we're done." She hesitated. For a second, I thought maybe she'd acknowledge it. But instead, she scoffed again and walked off, muttering, "Unbelievable." I shut the door behind her and locked it. Then I opened my laptop and started writing an email. A very specific email. To my dad's car dealership. See, I knew the place. I'd helped him pick it out. I still had the contact information for the guy in financing. I didn't send anything that day, not yet. But I typed something up, saved it, and left it in drafts. Because suddenly, an idea had started forming. Not just about the car. About everything. It was time they saw who I really was. Not the background character. Not the quiet ATM. Not the kid they shoved at the folding table. No. It was time they met the Andrew who'd been quietly rebuilding himself for years. The one with receipts. With records. With plans. The one who finally stopped apologizing for existing. And that's when things really started to spiral. It's strange how silence can be both suffocating and liberating at the same time. After my sister stormed off that night, the phone call stopped. The texts, too. My family has always had this unspoken rule. If you don't play along, you get iced out. It wasn't the loud, dramatic kind of disowning. It was quieter, more strategic, like slowly fading someone out of a group photo. I'd seen them do it to a cousin who came out as gay, to an uncle who married outside the culture. And now, it was my turn. I thought it would destroy me. But the truth? It felt like freedom. At first, yeah, it was painful. That ache of realizing the people you'd spent your whole life trying to impress never actually saw you for who you were. I checked my phone too often, still expecting a message that never came. Some part of me, the version of Andrew who still believed family meant loyalty, kept hoping someone would call and say, "Hey, I'm sorry. That wasn't right." But the calls never came. Not from Dad. Not from Mom. Not from anyone. For a few days, I spiraled. I didn't eat much. Didn't shower. Just kind of drifted around my apartment like a ghost. I kept playing their words in my head like a broken record. You're lucky we let you stay involved. You're being dramatic. You embarrassed Dad. Like I was the problem. Like years of mistreatment could be wiped away if I just apologized for standing up for myself. One night, I cracked open an old family photo album I hadn't touched in years. It was tucked in a dusty box under my bed, something Mom gave me when I moved out. Most of the photos were faded, but one caught my eye. It was Thanksgiving, maybe 10 years ago. I was standing in the background, holding a plate. Everyone else was seated, smiling for the camera. I wasn't even looking at the lens. I was halfway turned, like I didn't belong in the frame at all. I stared at that picture for a long time, and something shifted. That was the last night I let them define my worth. The next morning, I made a list. Not a revenge list, not yet, but a rebuild list. A plan to start living like someone who mattered, who deserved better, who didn't need a seat at their table because he could build his own. First, I cleared my calendar. Every Sunday dinner invite, every holiday ping, every "you coming to cousin's baby shower?" text. I deleted it all. I blocked numbers. I archived threads. If they weren't going to treat me with respect, they didn't get access to my time. Next, I poured myself into work. Freelance IT had always been feast or famine, but I'd gotten good at it. I started reaching out to past clients, letting them know I was taking on new projects. Within a week, I landed 2 gigs, both cybersecurity audits for mid-sized companies. By the end of the month, I had 4 more. My income tripled. I bought a second monitor, upgraded my desk chair, built a real office in the spare room that had always just been storage. But it wasn't just about money. It was about reclaiming identity. I started running again, something I hadn't done since college. Not because I wanted to look a certain way, but because I needed to feel movement, to remind myself I was still here, still capable, still alive. I changed my diet, started reading again, picked up an old hobby, woodworking, that I used to love before life got too noisy. I even built a bookshelf, by hand, and filled it with titles I'd always meant to read. Each nail I drove and felt like planting a flag in my own future. And slowly, I stopped waiting. Stopped waiting for their approval. Stopped waiting for that apology. Stopped waiting to feel like I belonged. Because for the first time in my life, I was learning to belong to myself. But of course, they didn't stay quiet forever. It started small. A "hey" from my mom, 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. Just that. No punctuation. No explanation. I stared at it for a long time and didn't reply. Then my aunt messaged me on Facebook, asking if I was okay, and that "your parents are really hurt, you know." Like I'd thrown a tantrum and stormed out instead of quietly withdrawing from a lifetime of disrespect. I ignored her, too. The silence must have driven them crazy. A month later, I got a voicemail from my dad. "Andrew, look, I know we've had some tension, but this is getting ridiculous. Your mother's worried sick. Call us back." I didn't. Because for the first time ever, I wasn't falling for the guilt trip. Instead, I kept building. In January, I launched a side business, a digital privacy consulting firm for small creators and influencers. I'd seen too many people get doxxed, hacked, or scammed online, and realized there was a niche I could fill. It started slow. One client, then another. But by March, I had enough recurring income to register the LLC. I named it Quiet Signal. The irony wasn't lost on me. Around that time, something wild happened. An old college friend, someone I hadn't spoken to in years, reached out. He'd seen a security guide I wrote go semi-viral on Reddit. He asked if I'd ever thought about teaching a course. I hadn't. But now that he mentioned it, why not? We co-developed a curriculum. I recorded modules, set up a site, and launched a basic online class in digital privacy basics. Within 2 weeks, over 500 people signed up. I made more in a single month than I had in most years. But more than the money, it was the emails that got me. Messages from people thanking me, saying I made something confusing feel simple, that they felt safer, seen, in control. It hit me like a freight train. All the things my family had mocked, my quiet nature, my overthinking, my love for details, were the exact things that made me valuable to others. I wasn't broken. I was just in the wrong environment. And that realization lit a fuse I didn't even know was there. Because once you stop trying to prove your worth to people who refuse to see it, you start thinking about justice, about consequences, not out of bitterness, but balance. I didn't want revenge. Not really. What I wanted was accountability. So I reopened that email draft I'd written weeks earlier, the one to my dad's dealership, and began to refine it. But more than that, I started digging into old receipts, into legal rights, into all the ways I'd been used, financially, emotionally, even professionally. I'd always played nice, but nice was over. And what I discovered next changed everything. Especially one document my dad never thought I'd kept. A contract. One that might legally tie him to something he'd been hoping no one remembered. The contract wasn't in a safe. It wasn't hidden in a lockbox or tucked away in some envelope labeled "Do Not Open." It was in a folder titled simply, "Old Taxes," buried inside a cloud storage account I hadn't touched in over 6 years. And yet, there it was. A PDF labeled "Loan Agreement," March 2017. My name. My dad's signature. His driver's license scanned on page 2. 5 pages total, dry language, boilerplate terms, but it was all there. The $6,500 loan I'd given him for his lawn care business startup back when I was 20 and naive enough to believe we were partners. The business flopped within 9 months. He'd blamed the economy. I never saw a dime back. But this wasn't just about the money. The final page included something else. A handwritten note he'd insisted on adding at the time, scrawled above the signature line. If I fail to repay this amount, I forfeit all rights to claim sole ownership of Andrew's old truck, which is currently in my name for insurance purposes only. That line hit like a thunderclap, because that truck? I'd forgotten all about it. Back then, it had been my lifeline, a beat-up Toyota Tacoma I bought in college. The registration had been moved to Dad's name during a complicated insurance issue, and after the loan drama, he just kept it. I moved to the city and didn't need it, and he swore he'd just use it for errands. But over time, it became his second vehicle. He even listed it on his taxes as a business asset. But technically, legally, it was mine. And suddenly, I saw it all with fresh eyes. Not just the truck, but every casual betrayal dressed as practicality. It's just easier this way, that conveniently benefited him and erased me. Every deal where I took the risk and he took the reward. So I printed that contract, made 2 copies, and started planning. This wasn't just about a car. This was about drawing a line, reclaiming what was mine, inch by inch. I didn't go nuclear. Not yet. I was strategic, patient, and quiet, just like they'd always taught me to be. Only now, I was applying that quiet in a way they'd never expected. First, I reached out to a former client, Mark, who owned a used car lot on the edge of town. We'd worked together the year prior on a payment portal redesign. I'd helped secure his customer database after a minor breach. "Mark," I said over coffee, "hypothetically, what happens when someone tries to sell a truck they don't actually own?" He chuckled. "Title dispute. You get lawyers involved." "What?" "No reason," I smiled. That afternoon, he sent me a contact for a guy named Luis, a DMV paperwork specialist who handled tricky title transfers. I emailed Luis a scan of the original contract and the vehicle info. He wrote back 20 minutes later. "Yeah, you have a claim," especially with that note. "If he refuses to transfer the title willingly, you can file a title dispute and request a hold on resale or usage. You might even be able to block registration renewal." I didn't act on it yet. I wasn't ready for the blowback. Not until the next piece fell into place. Because the real setup wasn't about the truck. That was just bait. The appetizer. The main course. That was buried in something my father had stupidly bragged about last year at Thanksgiving. See, my dad had always been a little too loose-lipped when he was proud of something. Last year, I'd overheard him telling Uncle Rick about a private loan he'd gotten through a friend of a friend to refinance the mortgage on their house. Something about keeping it off the books and not dealing with traditional banks. At the time, I'd tuned it out. Too many buzzwords, not enough relevance. But now it clicked. He was probably referring to a hard money loan, one of those quick cash deals that come with high interest and very tight collateral clauses. If the house was used as collateral and payments were missed, it could legally be seized, often faster than a traditional foreclosure. I needed proof. So I started digging. It took me 2 weeks and a favor from another client, someone in real estate. But eventually, I got the property records. And guess what? The loan was real. And the house was collateral. Even worse for him, the lender's name, a private investor LLC, popped up in several lawsuits across the state for seizing homes after just 90 days of missed payments. If Dad was behind even a month, the fuse was already lit. Still, I waited, watched, gathered. And then, almost like the universe wanted to hand me the final piece, I got a text from my cousin Tyler. Of all people. Yo, heard you're doing privacy work. My IG got hacked. Can you help? I stared at the message for a minute. Then I smiled. Of course. Send me your recovery email address. It took less than an hour to lock down his account, reroute the recovery, and secure it with 2FA. I didn't charge him. Didn't gloat. Just did it, fast and clean. He texted again. Bro, you're a wizard. Seriously, I owe you. I waited a day. Then I replied. Actually, there is something you can help with. Over the next week, I pulled together everything I needed. The contract about the truck, the property documents, even some old voicemails where Dad admitted, outright, that I'd funded part of his now-defunct business. All of it logged, backed up, and time-stamped. Then, I called Tyler. Hey, I said, keeping my voice calm. You remember that Thanksgiving joke? The one about the real job? He hesitated. Dude, I was just messing around. I know, I said, but I need a favor. What kind of favor? I need you to help me record something. Record what? A conversation. With Dad. Why me? Because he won't see it coming from you. There was a long pause. Then Tyler sighed. Okay, what are we trying to catch? I didn't answer directly. Because it wasn't just about catching anything. It was about setting the trap. And when Dad finally called again, this time, pretending everything was normal, asking if I could grab lunch soon, I knew the time had come. I agreed. Pick the place. Neutral ground. A quiet diner we used to visit when I was a kid. Nostalgia, I figured, might make him comfortable. Loose. And it did. He showed up in his usual uniform. Work boots, windbreaker, slight grease on his hands like he'd come straight from a project. He grinned when he saw me. Been too long, kid. I didn't smile. We made small talk. He asked about work. I told him things were going fine. He mentioned how Mom's been missing you, and how we don't want things to be weird forever. Then, slowly, he shifted. Listen, he said, leaning forward, lowering his voice. About that money. I know you probably felt ambushed. That was never the plan. But you know how your mom gets when she's stressed. The car, the holidays. He trailed off. I just nodded. Let him keep going. I was going to pay you back, he said. Still plan to. We're just tight right now. You know how it is. There it was. The lie. Because I didn't know how it was. I had the loan documents. I had the repayment schedule. I knew exactly how tight things were, and just how close he was to defaulting on his mortgage if another emergency hit. I looked him dead in the eye. Dad, I said quietly, do you remember that truck? The one you've been using for the last few years. He blinked. What, the Tacoma? Yeah, you still have it. Sure. What? Because I want it back. He laughed. Thought I was joking. I didn't flinch. I'm serious. The smile faded. Andrew, be reasonable. I reached into my bag and slid a copy of the contract across the table. I'm being precisely reasonable. He stared at it. Read the first few lines. His jaw tensed. This was a handshake deal. No, I said. It was a written contract. With your signature. And if you don't hand over the keys, I'll file a claim. Which, by the way, could complicate the hard money loan attached to your house. You know, the one with the 90-day clause? His face went pale. You wouldn't. I leaned back. I would. And you know why? Because I'm done being the quiet one. The ATM. The backup plan. We sat in silence. He didn't argue. Didn't shout. Didn't threaten. He just looked stunned. And when I stood up, I didn't even say goodbye. Because this wasn't the end. This was just checkmate in 4. And the final move was still to come. The truck was in my parking lot the next morning. No note. No knock on the door. No angry text. Just parked neatly in front of my apartment building. Keys placed on the windshield under the wiper, like it had returned on its own. It was surreal, walking out there. The same beat-up Tacoma I'd once hauled college furniture in. The one I used to drive when I dreamed of being seen by my family. The one I worked late nights to buy, only to hand it over because my dad needed it more. And now it was mine again, legally, contractually, emotionally. I climbed in. The smell hit me first. Old leather, pine-scented air freshener, and faint motor oil. I turned the ignition. Still ran like a champ. I didn't smile. Not yet. Instead, I drove it straight to Mark's lot. He appraised it on the spot. Said with some detailing and a little work on the suspension, he could get me a decent offer. Cash or trade. I didn't even hesitate. Sell it, I said. And give me whatever you can by Friday. Need the cash fast. No, I said. Just don't want it sitting outside my place another day. It wasn't about the money. It was about the line in the sand. I wasn't keeping souvenirs. That was Monday. By Wednesday, I had the check. By Thursday, the message finally came through, from my mom this time. Your father told me what you did. We're disappointed, Andrew. This isn't how family behaves. And just like that, I knew they still didn't get it. Because this was how family behaves. When they've been ignored, dismissed, used. This was the result of years of treating someone like a footnote in their own story. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because by then, I had already finished the real move, the one they'd never see coming. See, while I'd been collecting truck contracts and property records, I'd also quietly been working on something else. Remember that online course I launched? The digital privacy guide that went semi-viral? Well, it exploded. After a few strategic Reddit posts, a guest appearance on a mid-sized tech podcast, and a glowing tweet from an influencer with 200K followers, the course hit over 6,000 paid signups. And the reviews? 5 stars across the board. People weren't just buying the course, they were sharing it, recommending it, trusting me. Within 3 months, I was pulling in more revenue than I'd made in any full-time job. Enough to pay rent 6 months ahead, stash a chunk into savings, and, most satisfying of all, completely sever financial ties with my entire family. Which I did. Formally, I sent each of them a certified letter. Brief, polite, legal. As of this date, I will no longer provide financial assistance, loans, or support of any kind to family members. All prior debts, unpaid balances, and outstanding favors are considered closed. Do not contact me for money, business, or employment-related matters. I even CC'd their emails, just so there was a digital trail. Within hours, the fallout began. My sister called first. Voicemail, of course. No apology, just venom wrapped in guilt. Wow, cutting off your own blood? After everything we've done? You're seriously going to be that guy? Then my mom. We raised you better than this. What happened to the Andrew we knew? Even Tyler tried to play mediator. Dude, I get you're mad, but don't you think this is a little extreme? But the truth was, I wasn't mad anymore. I was done. And with that clarity came something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. But the final twist? That came 2 months later, when I got a LinkedIn message from a recruiter at a major media company. They were launching a new podcast, something about digital privacy, online safety, tech ethics, and they wanted a consultant. Someone with experience. Someone who could explain complex systems to regular people in a way that didn't sound like a robot. I met with them, shared my course, gave them stats. By the end of the month, I was signed on as their lead consultant. Remote, 6-month contract, generous pay. One of the producers even said, "You have this calm, surgical clarity when you talk. Like you've been through some stuff." I laughed. Yeah, I said. You could say that. A week after the podcast launched, I got a text from my cousin, Sarah, one of the few family members who'd stayed neutral during the fallout. "Hey, just listen to that new podcast. Didn't realize that was your voice. It's awesome." I thanked her. She sent another message. "Mom's freaking out. She heard it too. So did Aunt Linda. They're all saying Andrew's acting like he's better than us now." I stared at the screen, then typed, "I'm not acting," and hit send. That was the last message I sent to anyone in my family. Since then, my life's been quieter, calmer, focused. Holidays are solo, but they're peaceful. I cook what I want, watch whatever movie I feel like. No fake smiles, no side glances, no backhanded compliments about real jobs or growing up. Just me, in my own space, on my own terms. I built something, and they'll never take it from me again. They used to laugh at the quiet one. Now they can sit in their own silence. I don't need their table, because I've built my own. And the seat at the head, that's mine.